Server-side events, or SSEs, are an alternative to AJAX and an alternative to WebSockets. Let me teach you how to do server-side events with Python and Flask throughout this video. Here's a demo of the application we are going to build. As you can see, we have 3 different browsers, and each of these browsers is displaying a number. This number comes from a shared variable between these server-side events. And as you can see, the purple background color is coming from this file. So if I change the color to, let's say, red, save it, you can see how it automatically changed the color in all the browsers. If I do blue, it will also change. And you can also do an RGBI. Let's do 29.164.229.1. And that's the new color we get out of it. So let's get into the coding part so you can see how I do this. We will need to create our application in a folder. Go to VS Code and create a folder anywhere you want in your computer. And then open the terminal, the command prompt, and navigate to that folder. In my case, I did cd, and then I went to the Flask folder, and then I went to the SSE. So this SSE is the folder that I have in VS Code. Once we are inside the terminal, we are going to create a virtual environment for this application. So I will do py. If you are in a Mac computer, maybe you want to do py3. You can also do Python or Python 3. So we just do py, and then I'm going to do the flag-m for the module called VM, and I will install everything inside the SSE folder. That's what the dot means. Press enter. It will take a couple of seconds, and then you will see how this is created inside the SSE folder. Once we have done that, we are going to, let's just list which packages we have inside this folder. Oh, sorry. First we need to activate it. So we'll do /s, and then I will press tab, /a, and then I will press tab again. Now you can see how this changed, and that means that I am inside my virtual environment. So since we're there, we can do a pip list to see which modules we have. If you get this warning about using an older version of pip, it doesn't really affect the system, but if you want to upgrade it, you can just do py, and then I'm just reading what it says here. So I will do -m, and then I will do pip install --upgrade pip, enter. This will install the newest version of pip. It will upgrade it. And now if we just clear it and then we do a pip list, you can see what I have inside this application so far. So we need to install Flask. So we're going to do pip install Flask. And this will install all the packages for Flask, all what's needed there. We will also need to install something else afterwards, new packages. So now let's just do a pip list. And you can see that I have Flask, Jinja 2, and a lot of other packages inside my application. So now create a folder, call it server.py. You can also call it app.py. That's the usual thing when you create an application. And I'm going to start copying and pasting lines of code right here so you can see and I can tell you what each line does. By the way, all this code is going to be placed on GitHub. So if you look at the video description, you can find all of it there, and then you can take it from that place. So what we will need to do is we need to, first of all, create inside our server application what is known as this G event. And let me just zoom in a little bit more there. This G event just says that we are going to create a lot of greenlets. I'm also going to put in the video description a link to greenlets and G event. And that just means that many different clients, like browsers, they will be sharing this environment where we have a lot of code routines, making the server really, really fast and making the server a server that allows you to do server send events. Then we are going to have a line of code that is going to import from Flask the response. We're going to render a template just so you see the whole thing. And then we have this stream with context. And that's because the connection will not be closed. The connection will be open, and that is the server send events and how they work. So this is not like AJAX that the connection is closed once the response is sent. This will just keep it open. Then we will have to actually patch our WSGI server. So as you can see, I have the usual server here, and I'm going to patch it with a G event server. So it will allow me to create these server send events. Now we also need to import, and that's not something necessary to the SSEs, but I'm going to import JSON just in case that I need to convert my response to JSON. And I'm also going to import time, and that's because I want things to run at a certain interval. You will see what happens when I use the time part of it. Now we are going to create a Flask app, and we're going to start the counter at 100. This counter is just a variable that will count numbers. If you saw the first part of the video where I show you the demo of it, then you saw how the numbers were incrementing, and that's the global variable called counter. You can call this obviously anything you want. Now we're going to create a route. This route is going to point to the index. That means that if you do localhost, this is going to be providing the application website. So as you can see, I just have a function called render index, and I will just return a template, which is the index.html page. At the moment, I don't have the page. I will build it just as we go along. Now I'm going to copy more lines of code, and this is going to be just the lines that will run the server. This just says that if the name is main, the usual thing with Flask, I'm going to create a WSGI server with my application, and then I'm going to run it forever. Now remember that this WSGI server is patched with the G event. So that is what's going to allow me to create the SSEs. And the last part of it, I'm just going to put here the lines of code, is the actual SSE application. So we'll copy and paste it, and then I will explain what it is doing here. Now there are a few things we do not need. I had these lines here just as a test. I will just delete them. And you're going to see something quite weird. Actually, if the client connects to the route called /listen, the function listen is actually going to have an inner function called respond to client. You can call this function anything you want. And this function will run forever. That's why we have this while true. And this while true opens here and ends right there. And these are just some lines that I was running as a test. This is the only thing we need. Now this is what's going to happen. Once we are inside this function, we are going to talk to the global counter variable. We are going to open the file called color.txt, which we don't have at the moment. And then we're just going to print the color that we read from the file. If the color is not white, this is just to show you that you can do a condition. If the color is not white, I'm going to print the counter in the terminal. I'm going to increase the counter by 1. And then I created here a variable called _data, which actually creates a JSON string that contains the color that we took from the file and the counter that we took from the global variable. And this could also be data coming from a database, data coming from an external API, anything you want. And I am using the keyword called yield, as you can see it there. And this is just going to tell that I'm going to pass data to the client via server send event, and the syntax has to be done in this way. The ID doesn't really matter, I just do ID 1, and then you must have a \n. You must have the data column. It is part of the SSE, you must have it. And right here, because I am inside an F string, as you can see there, that's the F string. And then the data will be whatever this variable called data contains. In this case, it contains this JSON string. So that's what I'm passing back to the client. And then I will get the event that will be online. This can be anything you actually want to call it. So you will see how this gets connected to the front end in a second. And then you also need, and you must have the \n. So there are things that are necessary to have and must have. And then the last line, I'm going to return, I'm going to create a response, and then I'm going to call the response to client function, which is this function right there. And as you can see, this function actually never returns anything. This function opens here, it ends actually right there, but it doesn't return anything. And then the MIME type is going to be an event stream. So this is something that you must have as well. So let's save this file. And now we're going to create the folders that will have the index page and the counter file, the color file actually, this one there. Let's do that. Let's create a new file. Let's call it color.txt. Press enter. Let's give it a color red. Save it, and that will be the entry color for the application. We are going to create a templates folder. So go ahead and create the templates folder. And inside this templates folder, we are going to put the index page. So just so you know why I need that, that's because when I call this route, I say that I'm going to provide the client with the index.html. And that's what I need now. So inside the templates, create a new file called index.html, and we're going to do the HTML part of it here. I will just copy and paste again. I will walk you through the code. It is just a normal, simple HTML file, nothing special about it. I have a counter div, that's the idea of it, and here is where the server send event takes place. Once this file has been loaded from the server, the file in the script tag will create an SSE event, and this is what you need to type. The event source, that's just a variable, is going to be a new event source that will point to the path called /listen. If we look at the server, we can see the /listen right there. You can call this path anything you want. Now, once we have created the event source, we're going to have an event listener on this SSE on the keyword called message. And this message is the default keyword of it. You cannot change it. But as soon as you get connected to the server, you are going to trigger this message keyword, and then you will see something in the console. Now, that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in passing data from the server to the client. In the event source, which is the SSE, we created a new event listener on the path called online. This online is actually coming from here, the event called online. And that means that when I yield, I will yield to the event online. So the server yields, the server passes data to this function called online, if that's what you want to think of. And what we're going to get is from the event the data. And this event is the SSE, and this data is this data right there. So whatever data contains, in this case this JSON string, will be put right in here. And since that was just a JSON string I passed, I'm going to convert it into a JSON object. Once I get this out from the JSON object, I'm going to go to the counter variable, the div, this div right there, and I'm going to set that the data.counter will be the text of it, and that was the number that you saw that was counting. And I also want to change the background color of the body, so I select the body, I do the style, I do the background color, and the background color equals the data.color, that variable there. So just so you know what the data counter is coming from, data counter is coming from here, that will be the counter, and the data color is coming from right here, that will be the color. So if we want to run this, let's see how we need to install the other part of our application that we're importing here. Go back to the command prompt, the terminal, and we're inside the virtual environment now. What we need to do is we need to try to run the server.py. Let me show you what we do. We say Python server.py. I'm expecting to see some errors here. As you can see, it says that I don't have this G event import from monkey and so on, and that will be in line number 1. You can see the line number right there. This is something I do not have. So what I will do is I will write pip install G event, press enter, and this will do many things for you. It will install this special server, so we can do what I call server side events and what's the greenlets actually behind the scenes, these core routines. Let me pause the video, and when it's done, I will get back to you. It is finished installing the G event. It took probably about 30 seconds in my computer. So now let's just clear the screen, and we're going to do a pip list again to see what we have in here. And you can see that this greenlet and the G event has been installed. Let's try to run the application, Python server.py. And as you can see now, it is actually running. The server is set up. I'm going to do a test. I'm going to open a browser. I will just use a new incognito window right there. I'm going to point to localhost, and let's see what we get out of it. Now you can see that we have the red color and it's counting to 111 and so on. Let's create a new tab. Let's place it next to it like so. Let me see if I can do that just like so. And then I will just do localhost again. They are both red. They are sending the number as expected. Let's go back now to the command prompt. You can see that the numbers are being shared between both instances of Chrome. And if we go to our index application, our VS Code, let's go to the color part of it. And I will just do it like this. Let me just move this a little bit down there, minimize this, and now the color is going to be blue. Save it, and you can see how the server send event takes place. I'm going to change the color to finalize this tutorial to purple. Save it, and it is changed. Before I finish it, let me just tell you about the timer, the time that I talk about. That's right here. That means that every browser instance is going to be notified by this greenlet in half a second. So every half a second, the greenlet, this function will operate and send some data to the browser. It doesn't have to be that fast. You can set it to 1 second. You can set it to 5 seconds, depending up to you. Depends up to you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I think this is actually the nice thing about servers and events. Please subscribe. I will come up with videos with quite fancy things that you can learn with Python, Node.js, and so on. Thank you very much.